right, so let's get going. I'm in standard tuning here, and basically to get going, what I think it'd be really great for you to know already, and I'll talk about some of this more beginner stuff a little bit, but you should have a basic grasp of the open chords, C's, G's, D's, E minors, A minors. Also a grasp of the bar chords, the two major bar chords with the roots on the E and the A string, and the minor bar chords as well. And just as the jumping point, because a lot of the more trickier voicings and tricks still revolve around the thought of plugging in one of those bar chords or an open chord. So basically we want an understanding of the bar chords and the open chords and the roots on the E and the A string. Good refresher stuff for you if you don't know it, and if you do, we're going to get started right now. So the first thing, I think, when we're talking about like a Hendrix style thing or a Hendrix style playing would be this chord that most guitar players refer to as the Hendrix chord. I think that's as good a place to start as any. I call it the Hendrix chord. The real musical name for it is a 7♯9. The one I'm going to talk about for right now is the E7♯9 chord. And the way Hendrix mostly played that chord was with the root on the A string. So if I said E7♯9, we want to find an E note on the A string to plug in the chord. So plug in the chord by the root. So an E note is right here on the 7th fret of the A string. Now to play that E Hendrix chord, we're going to take our middle finger and put that on the root, index finger on the 6th fret of the D, ring finger on the 7th fret of the G. Now just those three notes make up what would be called E7. And then the 9 tone of the chord is on the B string. The natural 9 is on the 7th fret of the B string. And that is what I call the James Brown chord. But if we make that 9 a sharp, meaning a half step higher, then it's right there on the 8th fret of the B string, and we're going to play that with our pinky. So that is the E Hendrix chord, also known as E7♯9. One thing that's cool about the E7♯9 is that you have the low E string right here. The high E string is part of that as well if you want it. Typically we don't use it for this chord, but it can be. So if I said, okay, we'll play a G7♯9. It's just the same chord, but that note, which is an E right now, has to be a G to play the G Hendrix chord or the G7♯9. E's right here. F is a half step higher than E in music. And then G is a whole step. So it's the 10th fret of the A string. So this would be a G7♯9. Up a whole step would be an A7♯9. Like that. If I said C7♯9 or a C Hendrix chord, we've got to find a C note. It's on the 3rd fret of the A string right here. Let's go back to E. So E's really good for the Hendrix chord because of that low E, like I was saying. So let's do this. Let's hit a couple of... We're going to hit 2 on the open E there, into the strum. Well, if you're asking how can I use the chord, well, Hendrix liked to use it instead of a more traditional blues chord, which is just the regular 7 chord. He liked to add this chord as, you know, at one point probably more of a jazz-oriented chord, but he took it and used it in replacements of a more standard like blues chord. He, you know, still use that chord, but when you do the Hendrix chord or the 7#9, now you have this kind of dark, a little darker sound, and maybe a little more exciting, more dangerous. All right, so got some more examples coming your way. Just hang tight. But we want to get a grip on that chord, and we're going to learn some other tricks to do with it. Okay, so now I'm going to take this E Hendrix chord, and then we're going to add a G bar chord, a G major bar chord to an A major bar chord. The root's right there on the E string, 3rd fret up to the 5th fret. So we go to this. Now notice those bar chords right there. This is where I want to bring up another topic in the Hendrix style, is taking this bar chord, major bar chord, and that chord's fine, totally fine. I use that probably the most when it comes to that chord. But here's another chord that Hendrix would like to substitute for that bar chord. See where I'm going here? Like, you want to know the basic chords so you know how to plug in those other options or those substitutions. So what we're going to do, instead of barring it like this, we're going to get our thumb to hit that note. Now my left thumb's also muting that A string. Now we want to add the rest of the chord. So when my thumb is covering that right there, we now want an F shape. Now one interesting thing about that chord, it takes a little work, and also the high E is getting muted by my index finger. But one thing that's cool about this is, one, it's freed up your pinky for a lot of the tricks that Hendrix likes. That'd be called an add 9 chord. G, add 9, A, add 9. And you can substitute that anytime for a standard bar chord. Okay, Okay, so now let's go back to that E Hendrix chord. And then now we're going to play those substitution chords right there. The G major add 9 and the A major add 9. And it sounds like this. Okay, so we've now introduced a different kind of major chord, and we're going to be doing lots more with both of these voicings. So hang tight, and I'm going to show you another trick with that 7 sharp 9 chord.